We're going to start by introducing our panelists. So I'm going to ask each of our panelists, well, first of all, let's look here. Do I have you in the right order? Last time I reversed Google with Foursquare and it was a little funny, but awesome. So Daquana, do you want to introduce yourself first? I'm going to ask each person to just introduce themselves and their company, and we'll just kick it off that way. Thank you.
I'm Ryan Johnston, and I head up recruitment at Handy. We are a marketplace for home services. So in the same way that Uber matches you up with drivers, we match you up with home cleaners, handymen, plumbers, electricians.
So one of the things that I've been asking for a definition for at the start of each of our panels, for each one of the meetups that we've done, is to define what a junior developer is. How many candidates in the room or developers in the room would consider themselves a junior developer? Raise your hand, nice and proud. It's all good. I haven't written a line of code in 20-something years, so I will raise my hand. Excellent. So I'm going to ask our panelists for their definition of a junior developer. And the reason why is one of the disconnects that we see is a job post that says junior developer, and when you read it, they want a master's degree and 15 years of experience. Has anyone seen that issue? Raise your hand. Okay. So I think as an industry, that's probably something we can work on. So I think it's great to start with some definitions. So Ryan, if you'd like to start, give us your definition of what a junior developer might be, and the number of years of experience might be a good way to start it. We're going to go right down the panel.
So I would say like a year to 3 of experience, depending on what type of environment they've been in. Usually it's someone who can take parts of projects and run with it, but it still definitely needs that mentorship and oversight.
How many developers in the room would consider themselves entry level? It's okay, raise your hand nice and proud. Great, so let's define entry level real quick. So Ryan will go straight down again. Just the difference between entry level and junior.
Yeah, I think it comes back to the types of environments that they've worked in the past. Hopefully someone who's coming in at quote unquote entry level has done some type of internship work. They're coming out of school, they're hungry. Like, I think for smaller companies, it's more difficult to hire people like that just because they don't have a proven track record and you don't necessarily know exactly like what they can accomplish, which is why I would say in like the startup world, people tend to look for more of that junior developer as opposed to like entry level.
One of the things that has been coming up more and more at our panels, and it was really interesting a few months back to hear Google's perspective on this, is boot camps. So how many of our attendees are currently enrolled or have graduated a dev boot camp? Raise your hand. So what is that? Mark, what do you think? 15, 20% of the room, something like that? Great, so I'd love to get everyone's feedback on kind of what's happening with boot camps today, and do you consider those candidates? Yes or no, and maybe why?
If you're going through a boot camp or you've been through one and maybe this is your first or second job coming out of that, I definitely want to see that you're doing other things and trying to keep up your learning on your own, whether that's your own personal website like you mentioned, or just being active in different boards and things like that. I want to see that constant effort to improve your skill set, not just being content with, okay, I learned this skill set, now people should automatically hire me because I went through a boot camp. And I've seen the opposite end of that too. So
I'd love to learn a little bit more about your process. If you could talk a little bit about the number of interviews. Is there an on-site technical interview? Again, when we're thinking about hiring, let's be specific for like junior to intermediate developers. I think would be great for the room. So talk to us about your process. Is there a coding challenge? Where in the process does the coding challenge occur? I think it'd be very helpful to learn how each of your companies manage that. So we'll start with Ryan.
So for any technical position, it's usually a conversation with me. Obviously, I'm not doing any of the technical screening. Next, it goes to the hiring manager. We'll hop on the phone, do a slight code pair, and obviously kind of like talk to them about their backgrounds. And then we usually move things directly to an on-site, which is pretty lengthy. But found it's kind of the best way to go about things. So it's usually about 3 hours of technical interviews with 3 different hiring managers, algorithms, architecture and design, and then like a longer code pair with them. Then we do a social kind of like lunch event. So you can get to know the rest of the team in a more relaxed setting, or like, going out for coffee if it's a different time of the day, and then usually coming back and meeting directly with the hiring managers for another half an hour to an hour.
Great. So before we move on, I wanted to drill in a little bit more to the coding challenges. Raise your hand if you've done a coding challenge, nice and high.
Wow. What do you call a coding challenge?
So coding a test, basically an assessment. So someone who is asking you to complete a coding test, coding challenge. Awesome. So Ryan, you want to talk maybe just a touch more about the coding test or coding challenge part, and then we'll continue down the panel. Is it lengthy? Do you time it? Do you expect it back in a certain amount of time?
So I've been at companies where we've taken 2 different approaches. So most of the time, at least for my company now, it's like a screen sharing exercise.
So you do it live, actually.
Yeah, we do a live one.
Interesting. So when you said code pairing, you're actually doing it live as a screen share. Interesting. Has anyone done that? Raise your hand. Has anyone done a live? Oh, about almost a little less than half of the people or a third of the people have done a coding challenge. Interesting. Keep going, please.
But at other companies that I've been at, like Canary, the smart device company, and then at ZocDoc as well, they send one out to you. So both of them have their pluses and minuses. Obviously, doing it live, people tend to be a little bit more forgiving if there are mistakes. It does put people under a little bit more added pressure, though. At the same time, from a recruitment perspective, it can be very difficult to know the real quality of an assignment that you give out to someone and they take like 4 or 5 days to complete it. So it's a balancing act. Some companies will do it one way, some will do it another. It's usually what I found personal preference of the hiring manager. We want to, more so than anything, understand the way in which you go about solving a problem and the way you think. So that's the real benefit there. If you can arrive at these solutions organically, if you need a little bit of help getting there, we just want to see that progression. One more thing regarding when assignments are sent out to you, at least at some of the companies that I've worked at in the startup world, they'll also put like bonus stuff at the bottom, or like kind of, this is the assignment, but if you want to do X, Y, and Z, like if it's interesting to you, definitely take advantage of that if it's a company that you're really interested in and passionate about, because it'll reflect onto HR and the hiring team that, you're really excited. It'll get us more excited about your candidacy.
I'd love to hear a success story. So if you could talk about maybe a recent process that landed into a successful hire, and if you could talk a little bit about where that person was either sourced from, or where that initial introduction came from, and what made it a great experience not only for the candidate but also for your team too.
So I've actually only been at Handy for about 3 months now, so no.
You can tell a story from your previous company.
Yeah,
it's
I was
okay.
gonna say I don't have any engineering success stories there, but at the place I was before, I made a hire for the director of our DevOps team. Took a while. It was a very, very long, lengthy process, but once we were able to get him in, it allowed us to get the ball rolling on a bunch of other positions as well, and bring on more junior people to the team, which was good because our infrastructure was falling apart every other day. So it was quite a relief to get that hire, and it actually came right after I had somebody stolen by JW Player, so that was nice too.
Red flags. What's a great tip or a fun story that's happened to you that you can share that people can avoid? Is there something that they shouldn't say, shouldn't do? Again, thinking about this junior to intermediate developer role, what throws up a red flag that says I need to get this person out of my office, and how did they make it in here this far past all of my screening? So we won't say what happened, it failed on the call. So let's say they got through the screening call or two, they actually made into the office, and something happened that you wondered why and how they actually made it through.
So I have one from my early days, which was actually a hire when I was working on your side of the business. And I think this comes back to some things that everybody else has said, like be social, network. I hired this woman for a consulting gig for a company out on the West Coast, and she lived in rural, like upstate New York. And she basically would just come do the job, not talk to anyone, sit in the server room by herself and code. And basically people there just got like very sick of her because she wouldn't collaborate, she wouldn't communicate, and just tried to do her own thing, even though it was kind of like against the grain of what this organization was trying to accomplish. So definitely network as much as possible with the people you work with. Focus on working in a collaborative way to get the job done. Sometimes it may be a little bit more difficult to work with people that way, especially if you know better and think that this is the way you should do things, but that effective communication is definitely going to be important.